Hello there, and welcome to A to Zig. Today's program is about aging, or ageism, which is the kind of way that people think about older people. And I want to introduce this subject because, first of all, if you haven't noticed, I'm kind of older, so this is a subject that I have some experience with. To begin with, let's talk a little bit about this idea of ageism. Where did this come from? Well, back in 1969, and if you don't remember 1969, I do. But anyways, this idea of ageism as a bias was coined by Robert Neal Butler. And you can see his picture on here on the left of the screen. Butler described discrimination against the elderly patterned on the terminology of sexism and racism. And what we've seen is that the term ageism has also been used to describe the oppression of younger people by older people.
I think ageism is everywhere. It's in everything. I think it's something most people experience every day. It's something the younger generation experiences all the time. I experience it at work, where people prefer to go to an older coworker instead of coming to me for things, even though we've worked there the same amount of time or I've worked there longer. It's just what they prefer. But I think it's normal. I think it's just how the world works that ageism will happen, and as the younger generation we're going to be looked at like we don't know certain things because we're younger.
And so ageism is not just about old people. It's about any age group that particularly falls into a potential of being discriminated against. And if you think about human development in terms of stages, there are probably cohorts or groups of people that fall into these brackets that are on the screen right now. We know that infancy is a time period up to about 1 year of age. And then we look at toddlers between the ages of 1 and 5. Childhood is usually described as the ages of 3 to 11 years. And then middle childhood from 9 to 11 years. And then adolescence, that period of time that gets an awful lot of attention, is ages 12 through 18. And so adults kind of come into it at 19. And for the most part, we look at people as falling into that broad category up until age 62. Now, there is middle adulthood, and that's somewhere, in the 40s and 50s. But when we think about older adults, we typically think about them usually about the age of 62, 63. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, many people become eligible for Social Security about that time. And if you haven't noticed, some people get their AARP card sent to them. They become members of this group, which is an affiliation of older adults. So these are the time frames in which we're looking at ageism possibly existing. So what is this whole thing about aging about? And again, why is it so important? Well, because again, it's a large group of our population. These people have much to contribute. And along the way, I interviewed some people who can contribute to this program. And I'd like you to spend some time listening to what they have to say.
So ageism's a weird thing because
it is the most under-established, or what do I want to say?
I don't know, but I don't
People
feel
talk
any
about-
different than when I was 20 here.
I agree, but people talk about
Let's do a shot.
sexism and racism. Nobody wants to talk about ageism, and I think that there is a bigger population of
Let's do a
people
shot.
that have to deal with ageism.
As far as ageism goes, one of the things I've noticed is that sometimes staff members might sort of dumb down the way that they talk to some of the older patients, almost treating them kind of like kids in a sense. And I try and just make sure that I always treat everyone like they are a full-grown adult, because even when you're 70, 80 years old, you are absolutely an adult and you need to be treated as such.
I am very stuck in my ways. I think the younger generation is very stuck in their ways, and so is the older generation.
You know, it was Tolstoy that once said that the biggest surprise in a man's life is old age.
Ooh.
And I think about that a lot. I don't know when I read that, how many years ago it was, but I think about that a lot, and it is. It's just the aging process is a surprise. No matter how well you think you are adjusting, prepared for old age, every day is an experience.
I am a nurse. I've been a nurse 50 years, coming June. I'm still working full time. And the subject matter is pretty touchy for me, but we'll talk.
Okay.
I come from a very active, very big family from the 50s. I have a lot of brothers. So I was in the middle of all of them. So I was not only the domestic for my mom in the 50s, I was also a tomboy. And as a result of that, I was very athletic, moving all the time, traveling all the time, working full time in emergency and critical care and trauma. And I got to tell you, getting old ain't easy for me because all the sports injuries, and there were many, all the breaks and sprains and strains and broken hands and thumbs, didn't do too much about them back in the 50s and the early 60s, but now I'm head to toe arthritis. That's probably the most frustrating things. I can't do very much anymore. I can't do what I like to do. And I think the most profound statement I could make about that is my body is definitely 72. That's how old I am. And my head is 40.
And you're going through these changes. I feel like I have the same mind I did when I was in my 20s, but then my body is changed so drastically. And so we're going through these changes, and it's a challenge. But it's like every other stage of life. When you're a teenager, man, I think it was harder being a teen than it is being somebody in the 70s. Because you don't know what society is going to do and what you're going to do in society. Now we've been around the sun several times. And so we're having to make adjustments again. And if there's anybody used to making adjustments, it's senior citizens.
Because they've been through all the stages.
Yep, been through all the stages. Doesn't mean that the surgeries are fun. Doesn't mean, I was telling one of the cameramen earlier on that I now have what is called the furniture disease. He says, what is the furniture disease? I said, that's when your chest falls into your drawers.
It doesn't matter how old you are, being able to, continue to enjoy roots that you have set.
So everybody has to be open to change and open to working together, because that's the only way change can happen. It doesn't happen when you forget one group or exclude another group. You have to be willing to change, and working with people who don't have the same mindset or are older or think differently than you can be difficult, but it can be done. It can be done. You just have to be willing to work towards that.
If you think you're old, then you're old.
But some people just give up. You can't give up. You got to keep living one day at a time, and you create some new challenges and so forth, and you got to keep your mind going. If you don't keep your mind going and keep your mind active, as well as your body, then you're gonna shrivel up, and then you're not no good to anybody.
Physical activity to me would be very important for successful aging. Being able to move, get outside, walk, connect with nature, and really keep moving no matter what you do, whether it's gardening, walking the dog, playing with your grandkids or your children or your friends, golfing, those types of things, along with physical fitness type activities.
My mom had Alzheimer's, and the one thing that she never did was exercise, and so that's been very important to me the past, probably 15 years or so. So that's what I aim to. I try to work out 5 out of 7 days when possible, and stay active at home and at work.
We have a lot of prejudice in our society about what it means to get old. I think one of the prejudices is that as you age, you become forgetful, your ability to problem solve, your judgment declines, those kinds of things.
But I think, it's been really a blessing for me working with older people in the hospital. They are, not to make a generalization, but very wise. I've learned a lot of very interesting things that I never would have heard if it wasn't for working with people who were around in the 40s and 50s, and they've taught me a lot of life values, lots of life lessons, and it's been really a pleasure of mine getting to spend a lot of time with this generation that, over the next 10, 20, 30 years isn't going to really be around anymore. So it's something that I value a lot, and it's been a great pleasure of mine in my field of work.
I feel that all of us have a lot to learn each and every day, and I think that the older generation can contribute to society and in leading the way with the younger people. Yes, a lot of technology has changed, and that is a struggle for some older people, but as long as you can stay abreast of some of those changes, I don't see any reason why we can't be contributing citizens.
Again, one of the things that I have observed, in my practice over the years is there's a big difference between biological age and chronological age.
When I think of older people, I think that, that there's just, again, age is a number, and that's a really broad topic. And I think that age is really relative. So some people, think, what is the definition of older? Is it 60 or older? Is it 90 or older? And again, I think that a lot of that just depends on the patient and the person themselves, which would make them older. I have very active 80-year-olds that, are very healthy, young, and then I have 60-year-olds that smoked their whole life that, can't really care for themselves. And so it's kind of, the term older is kind of a hard concept for me now because it's just so variable.
And what I mean by that is you can see patients that are 50 years old who look 70 or 80 years old. And likewise, you can see people who are 70 or 80 years old who look 50 or 60 years of age. And a lot of times that has to do with lifestyle. And obviously, things like smoking, obesity, maybe work environment, if you're exposed to a lot of chemicals or toxic fumes or things like that when you're working. A lot of these things have improved over time as I think our society has gotten more educated.
What does ageism mean to you?
Well, I think there's a certain degree of discrimination against old people or older people. If you have a little gray hair or you're looking older, some people tend to dismiss the person as somehow being no longer relevant, or maybe their time has passed and they need to move on, and they don't understand that we're actually, at least this is my feeling, we're actually adding a lot to the world around us because we know things.
Well,
we had experience.
So what can we do differently to help people really understand that? Look at it, we can add value to their lives. We can be more meaningful.
Yeah.
And we're not just a bunch of, old dudes that you're kind of thinking about like 1968 or whatever it was.
Well, I think they dismiss people a lot of times because they think, well, you don't know technology, or you're not aware of all the things that are going on. And I have to sometimes remind people, look at, we brought computers to you. We brought technology to you. We went to the moon before you were born. We've settled several wars. We've dealt with civil rights issues, women's issues, climate, racism, all these. We've dealt with those things. We've been in the mosh pit, so to speak, of life, trying to make room for you.
So do you think there's something they can really take away and learn and build on from us?
Yeah.
I mean, because frankly, we haven't solved these problems.
No, and I think what we have to do as older people is speak out. We need to start taking a more positive approach to many of these problems and actually telling people, look, we've got experience, we've seen these things, we know they're not going to be settled overnight, but if we don't work on it right now, you're going to be sitting in the situation where we are with these things.
So what you're saying is every day we work on these things, but every day we don't come up with the end solution.
No, I think that some of these problems aren't going to be solved for, we'll be dead, and they'll still be working on it.
Yeah.
But I think it's incremental, and we've moved it along. We got two generations here, right? You got a boomer, and what generation are you?
I'm being millennial, I guess.
Yeah, millennial. So, you know, you're working together. This is Pa and son working together. Wayne, how old are you?
65.
65, and how old are you?
31.
So, wow, there's like, you're twice his age, at least. Yeah. So, when you think about old people, Aaron, and then you're working with your dad here, who's 65. What's your thoughts? How do you see old people working next to this guy?
Well, I guess you're only as old as you feel, right? I work with a lot of guys that are in their 60s that work circles around even guys like me, so keep you up to pace. There's even younger guys that, I don't know, will never keep up with the likes of him. They don't last long when they do work with us, so.
Okay. So, Wayne, when you get around people and they look at you or they think you're old, what goes through your head?
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel pretty old, but I'm still doing it. Hopefully for a couple more years.
Yeah. Well, you like to work, right?
Yes, I enjoy this. I enjoy concrete work.
Yeah, and this is not an easy job.
No.
I mean, if you were going to pick a job in terms of physical labor, this is probably one of the tough ones.
Has to be one of the toughest. Yes.
Yeah. And how many years have you been doing it?
Well, I'm 65. I've been doing it since I was like 17.
Wow.
Yes.
Just wow. Well, what do you think about that? He's been doing this since 17?
Yeah, I've been doing it since 18, so it makes it hard to complain about a rough day when he's been doing it twice, 3 times as long as I have. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you were going to hire this guy, you think he'd give you a good day's work?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, you're only as old or as young as you feel. So if you can keep doing it, don't overdo it. And that's why we got these young guys. When we get a little tired, let's take a break and let them take over.
These people all have a different perspective on aging, but you'll find that many of them have a very positive view of it. And that's good, because we tend to think that older people don't have the kinds of positive contributions that maybe younger people do. And that's ageism, when in fact they really do. And they add to our world in so many gifted ways that we really shouldn't in any way just neglect that.
I think my circumstance might be a little bit different than some people, because a lot of people don't believe my age when I tell them how old I am. I used to look a lot younger than I do now, but at 76, people are still surprised. So I think that's a little advantage for me right there. But I feel the age. I feel the aches and pains, but my mother always said, as long as they keep moving around, it's okay. But when the pain gets to be one spot, that's when you got to pay attention to it. So I kind of remember that. But so I decided to stop working because I know I'm not as sharp as I used to be mentally, and definitely I don't have the stamina that I had before. Working at anesthesia, it doesn't seem like it's that physical, but actually it is. And just the twisting and the turning and the up and down, the movements that you don't normally think about, those are the little movements that really bothered me, pain-wise. So I knew it was time for me to cut back, and it was time for me to stop. So I did.
So I've got an opportunity here to meet with Lee Trucks, who is 83 years old. And you have an interesting story. You just took a little trip, right?
I did, yeah.
Where'd you go?
Well, I wanted to hit some states that I'd never been to before, and that ended up being Northwest in the United States. So I went up to the UP in Michigan and turned left and just kept going until I got to Washington. Turned right. No, I turned left again and eventually got down to Los Angeles and turned left again and went to Atlanta area and turned left again and got back to Michigan.
So this kind of dispels the idea that people, when they get older, aren't good drivers, because you drove about 8,000 miles, got back home, and had a good time, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I don't particularly like to drive.
And I think a lot of people have this idea that retirement is a time when you put your feet up and don't do anything.
Yeah,
I
stop
think
moving.
people buy into that, you know, and it's, I think that's not good, not healthy thinking.
That's what I had made up my mind when I retired, I'm going to write. Well, I just finished having 3 children's books done. So I'm just going to, you know, this was something I had put on the shelf because I was working, and I said, oh, I'll get around to them, I'll get around. Well, now I did get around to it, finally. So I got these 3 published, and you know, and then I have my next one lined up. It's just keeping your mind active, and that's what it is.
I caught you working. Yeah.
How's it going?
Good. Hey, so they tell me when you get older, you slow down. I don't think you've slowed down at all.
Well, I didn't start till 2 o'clock this afternoon, so.
We're doing a movie on aging and ageism, and obviously you're not slowing down a bit.
Well, you know, the arthritis is getting to me, my wrists and shoulders and all that kind of stuff. My ortho guy, 4 or 5 months ago, I was asking him about some bruises I had, and he goes, yeah, that's normal for an old guy. So, I mean, it's the first time I've ever had anybody really tell me that. My philosophy has always been you're only as old as you think you are, and I'm still rocking the 50s. So, you know.
So what do you think about people when they think that you're old, and what's going on in your head?
I think age is a state of mind. I mean, it's just, if you don't think it, then you don't have to worry about it so much. You know, I get the aches and pains. I get out of bed slow and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, you know, I get out here every day. I keep moving. We ride bikes. You know, we walk the beach. So, you know, staying active is a big part of it.
How old are you now?
73.
73.
74 in June.
74 in June. Okay. Yeah, that's good. What are you making here?
These are my angler fish. They're a deep sea fish. Eventually they'll have a fin across the top and one off the bottom. And then there'll be a lure that comes up and hangs over the front, and I'll have beach glass out here off of it. So they're actually a deep ocean fish, but Finding Dory, you know, the movie Finding Disney, there was a couple of angler fish in there, and so I got a t-shirt in Florida a few years ago that had one on, and I came home and started figuring out how to do it and make it work for me, and they sell pretty good. It's kind of crazy.
When you look at the research on aging, depending on what kind of research you look at, really determines kind of what you find. For example, when you look at cross-sectional studies, which means that you look at a group of people of a certain age, and then you look at compare them to a group of people of another age, you'll see significant differences. But those kinds of studies tend to exaggerate the effects of age. When you look at longitudinal studies, i.e. studies where you're looking at the same person over a period of time, those studies tend to minimize changes with age. And then you get into the problem of definition.
As a PA working with the oncology group, age is obviously a big deal to us. We get patients of all ages with a new cancer diagnosis, and the big question is, do we treat them with chemo? And the goal of treatment is to make them live longer. And so the big question is if they're a candidate for chemo. And it used to kind of be, oh, if you're over age 70, or there used to be this number that we would decide if we would treat or not. And now it's kind of more based off of what we call performance status. So based off of their quality of life at home before they got sick and how active that they are, which would make them a chemo candidate despite their number, their age alone.
Of what does it mean when you're talking about aging? Are you talking about normative aging? What's the average? Are you talking about healthy aging? And there are a lot of confounds that happen with aging. Obviously, health, becomes an issue. And when you look at aging and people with health problems, there are obvious declines. But are those declines due to aging, or are those due to health issues? And when you look at studies, say longitudinal studies, where you're looking at the very healthy, where there's an absence of disease or chronic health problems, those studies tend to minimize changes with age.
So what's your wish? What is your wish that this next generation, this last generation, could take away from us old guys saying whatever we say?
That they don't become slackers. Because, as much as they criticize the boomers, we did a lot of stuff. And we confronted many issues that needed to be confronted that were embedded in this country for hundreds of years. And, you look at women's rights, just pick that one.
Yeah.
Look at how far women have come just in our time. I mean, you can think back how women were treated
Yes.
in a real bad way. And now, I just saw today that the head of the NFL team in Las Vegas is a woman. That would have never been even thought of before.
So all you're looking for is positive momentum, people listening, people interacting, and deciding to let's step in this together.
Yeah.
And let's not isolate generations. Let's learn from each other.
Yeah, and I think that the millennials, all these other groups would really do themselves a favor if they put their social media devices down and started talking to people like you and I.
Yeah.
And asking us questions, and just not expecting a lecture, but expecting real, genuine answers. Conversation.
Yeah.
And if we could get that kind of interaction going, I think much more would get done.
I think you're right, and I think we'll close with that. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great interview. Well, thank you for spending some time thinking about aging and ageism. I hope you all reach a point where you can enjoy your golden years, as they are referred to. Maybe one of the things to do is spend some time talking to older people and find out a little bit about their experiences. Ask them some of the things that maybe you're questioning about your time in life, to see what kind of perspective they can give you. When people get older, what happens is they actually just put on a different hat and they move on with their life. They're still contributing. They still have a lot to offer. And you should find out some of that from them, because most of them have really interesting stories to share. Thank you for paying attention to A to Zig, Ageism. I look forward to seeing you somewhere around. Good luck to you.